your Career Power Tuesday tips on this Tuesday, the 9th of August. And I want to talk to you today about being valued. So if you are feeling undervalued, overlooked, underpaid, perhaps a bit overwhelmed, then I want to share some principles and tools with you in this short 10-minute or so live video. So here is a first principle for you. Feeling undervalued is something we tend to project onto others, as in, they do not value me highly enough. But it starts with you. If you are feeling undervalued, in some way, you are not valuing yourself sufficiently. Because employment, whether that be being an employee of an organization or being self-employed and trading your services for other people's investment, it's a choice, it's a contract. And it's a contract that invites balance. I trade my time for your money. I trade my passion and effort and energy for the security of being employed by this organization and receiving certain benefits. And if that contract goes out of whack, if you are giving a lot more than you are getting, or if there is an unfair trade of your time and energy in for the salary and benefits and safety and security, psychological safety and security that you get back, well, that can only continue if you allow it to. It can only continue in that way if you are willing to continue being a part of that contract. We often forget that we have a choice, and it's because it often doesn't feel like it, right? You've got the mortgage and the car lease to pay and the kids' school uniforms to buy, whatever it might be. So you feel that you have to stay in a job where you feel undervalued. But consider that you don't have to. You choose to, because the alternative, which is the leap into the great unknown, financial insecurity, risk, doesn't seem so appealing. But realizing that you have a choice is a really healthy and helpful mindset shift. Realizing that I am choosing to give my time and energy and passion to this organization in return for whatever I'm getting in return. That's a choice I make. And I make that choice because I don't want the financial insecurity that would come with making a different choice, or I want to be able to keep the fancy car that I have on the driveway, or I want to continue living in this house and therefore paying this mortgage. But you do have a choice. You have a choice to get rid of the car, to downsize to a smaller house, to take on some hardship perhaps, or some risk in order to free yourself from the environment in which you feel undervalued. It's a choice you make. So I really want to get that mindset point across to you, that we make choices and choices have consequences. That's the first thing. No one can continue undervaluing you without your permission, without your consent to staying within that transactional relationship in which you are frustrated that you feel undervalued. You don't have to stay in it. You can start looking for other jobs. You can assert your value differently. And I'm going to come on to how you can do that. So, really recognizing that you are an empowered individual with choice in this situation is a great start point. If you are feeling undervalued because you are working your butt off and feel that you are not being paid enough for that, or feel that you're being pushed and pulled in too many directions, that you're given too much work and it's more than one person can do in your contracted hours, well, here are a couple of other strategies you can use. The first is to, for your own sake, calculate the number of hours that you are working beyond your contract and attach a tangible value to that. So the way you do that is if you take your annual salary and divide it by 220, which is the standard number of days a person works, give or take. then that gives you a day rate. If you divide that day rate by 7 or 8, it gives you an hourly rate, literally what your time is worth per hour under your current employment terms. You can then look at how many hours you work beyond your contracted hours. So take an average week. Do you work through your lunch breaks? Do you work later than the standard finish time that might be expected in your contract? If you do either of those things to the tune of, say, an hour pretty much every day, then that's 5 hours a week you are giving in your time for free to your employer. And if you multiply those 5 hours per week by that hourly rate that you just calculated, that tells you how much time value per week you are giving to your employer. If you then multiply that back up by, say, 48, average working week in average working weeks in a year, that tells you annually how much of your time you are gifting to your employer in overtime that I'm going to assume you may not be being paid for. When I do these sums with my clients, we sometimes get to numbers as big as 5, 10, 15,000 pounds in time that they are giving to their employer in free time. And that's a bit of a sharp wake-up call when it comes to your value and how you are allowing it to just drift away. So that's a really helpful sum to do so that you know just how much of your time in value you are giving away. And you're choosing that, which brings me on to the second point. Your employer might be putting some pressure on you. There might be more work than is possible to achieve in the designated time. Might be, too many things, not enough people. But if you continually support a greater workload than it is possible to achieve in your contracted hours, you are training your employer that it is possible for them to continue applying that much work into a kind of bottleneck of resources. As long as you are saying yes, you are encouraging the situation to continue. So the second piece around value is about learning the art of setting healthier boundaries. This is about how to say no constructively. And I've written a lot on this topic on LinkedIn. So if you would like me to share any of the things I've written about how to say no constructively, tools you can use, how to set healthier boundaries, drop me a note below and I will send you some links to the tools that I've published previously around healthy boundary setting. But the point here is we train people how to treat us. So if you continually say yes, if you're prone to a bit of people pleasing, if you find ways to squeeze in that extra work, but at some personal cost because you miss dinner or skip the evening with the kids or don't manage to make it home, to hang out with your husband, whatever it might be, as long as you are finding ways to make it work, you're basically teaching your decision makers it's possible, it can be done. You know that it's you that gets squeezed in the middle. But look, business is brutal, right? As long as you keep making it possible, they're going to keep chucking the work at you. Whereas if you say, in order to be able to do this, I will need this much more time or these additional resources, or currently I'm working at sort of minus 10% capacity. I need an additional person in the team. Here's what it would cost. Here's what would become possible if I had that. You're in a very different shape of conversation, but most of us don't do that. We just keep trundling, making it work, being knackered, being overwhelmed, quietly getting increasingly resentful and frustrated. So calculate your overtime and what it's worth to your organization so that you know how much you are gifting. When you see how bonkers that is, start practicing the art of setting healthier boundaries. It's really important to having a respectful, mutual, balanced employment transaction of give and take. If you are struggling to see your own value, maybe you have an inherent feeling that you're being undervalued, but you would find it difficult to really position that or explain it or clarify it. whether that be to your existing employer or if you are considering taking on something new because you've realized it's time to draw a line under this, then I would really encourage you to list your achievements as an exercise in self reflection and contemplation. Sit down and look at all of the things you have achieved in the last year, because that can be a really good way of realizing quite how valuable we are. And in fact, I've done this exercise with clients, and normally people come back to me and say, I didn't realize quite how much I had achieved until I listed it all out. And I had this experience as well, actually, in a previous life. You list it all out and you get past the first page of A4 and you're still going, you think, wow, I have achieved a lot. It can be very heartening. It can really help you see the value you contribute to your organization. And the more you see that within yourself, the more that energy of I have value, I deliver extraordinary value here, will be felt and mirrored back to you by your decision makers, by the organization you work within. And the final tip I have for you is, having reflected on those achievements, give some consideration to how they support what I call the 4 pillars of value. So this is, within an organization, how you make money for the organization through the work that you do, how you save money for the organization through the work that you do. That might be around efficiencies or improvement of things. It could be about innovation. So how do you make money? How do you save money? How do you avoid risk? So perhaps the work that you do protects the organization's reputation. Perhaps it has a legal or regulatory angle to it. Be clear on how what you do mitigates risk. And finally, does it deliver something that really only you have the particular skill, passion, and expertise to deliver? Is that part of the strategic plan or a pet project that someone has? Is there something you're delivering that is really needed and wanted within your organization? When you look at your achievements, if you can find some of those that speak to each of those 4 pillars of value, you can actually attach something slightly more quantifiable into your value. So if you can quantify how you make your organization money, that becomes the really good foundation for a business case for why giving you greater responsibility or giving you a pay rise is really sensible relative to the value you are adding. And likewise with how you save an organization money, how you mitigate risk. Risk always boils down to money in the end, whether it's avoiding court cases or tribunals or reputational damage, which will impact sales. There's a reason we manage risk, and it's typically about maintaining the financial health of an organization for the long term. Or is there something that someone in a decision-making capacity really wants done, and you are able to make sure that thing gets done? So helping identify the way your achievements have contributed value is also a really helpful way of recognizing your own value, both in soft terms, in terms of your achievement, and in hard financial terms, in terms of the money you give to your organization through unpaid overtime because of your passion and commitment, and in terms of those 4 pillars of value. There is a little whistle-stop tour around the concept of value. I hope that it's been helpful. I could talk on this stuff for hours. I'm already nearly 15 minutes, I see. So I'm going to wrap up here. But if you would like a conversation about your value, your perception of value, and how you convey that to your organization with myself or a member of the team, then please also let me know below. Appreciating your value and being able to communicate it is a career power fundamental. If you do not have this stuff cracked, you're going to struggle to really step into your career power. So I'd invite you to figure out what you need to solidify for yourself and embed. And if you need a bit of support with that, well, look, you know where to find me by now. So enjoy that, and I will see you next week on Tuesday for some more career